on this edition of the Self-Publishing Show.
I had a few friends that were going down, my critique partners were going down the traditionally published side, and I was watching them with their query letters, and at one point they convinced me, they were like, come on, just try, and I did try for an open call, and then I just self-published before I even heard back from them, because it just wasn't for me.
Publishing is changing. No more gatekeepers, no more barriers. No one standing between you and your readers. Do you want to make a living from your writing? Join indie bestseller Mark Dawson and first-time author James Blatch as they shine a light on the secrets of self-publishing success. This is the Self-Publishing Show. There's never been a better time to be a writer.
Hello and welcome to the Self-Publishing Show with James Blatch.
And Mark Dawson, wearing the same clothes as last week.
Yes, we're doing a little batch, just 2 weeks in a row, which means by the time this goes out, it's frighteningly close to our live show.
A little batch.
A little batch. Little Blatch.
Little batch.
You don't know what I call Little Blatch.
No, I don't want to talk about Little Blatch. It's a terrible mistake.
So when's this going out?
This is going on the 28th of February.
28th of February, so we are just...
One episode, 2 episodes to go. This one and the next one, and then it will be... London,
which if you're not coming to, I'm sorry if we're rattling on about it, but is obviously occupying us. We suddenly find ourselves organising a 1,000-person conference at the height of a worldwide pandemic. It's always our aim. We want to write the next novel. The next novel will write itself. But we're very excited about that. And and you still have a chance to join us digitally. In fact, if you get in before the conference itself, March the 9th, if you go to selfpublishingformula.com/digital, and for $25, if you sign up before the conference, you'll get your $25 back in the form of a voucher. And then you get full access to all the courses professionally produced, which will turn around in within a couple of weeks afterwards. You also get access to the Self-Publishing Formula University, which is a place for regular live training. Some excellent training we've had recently on that as well. Okay, we can't do Patreons because we are pre-recording this. We'll catch up with them next week. But we are going to talk a little bit about our foundation. Now, we have, since we started the business, we set up a foundation to run alongside it to put some efforts and money back into the community. We were aware when we sell the courses that not everybody can afford them. We hear from people who are struggling a little bit, but clearly are talented, and no one wants to see talent go to waste. So the foundation was there to try and pick up those individuals for whom that finance was just a barrier to getting started and getting going and realizing their potential as writers. And you can apply for it if you go to selfpublishingformula.com. You've got all year to apply for it because we decide and announce the next batch next January. It's very likely that we are going to expand it this year because we've got 2 people I can think of have contacted us, and we'll announce this more formally during the year, but an organisation and an individual both contacted us and offered a good amount of money to go into the foundation, so we could seriously expand it this year. It'd be worth looking into.
Well, the expansion for the individual is actually starting this year. We're going to pick another one from this. So it's Mark Recklow who writes nonfiction. He's going to be at the conference. He's actually going to be on the stage talking with Joseph Alexander about selling nonfiction. And Mark got in touch and said that he'd like to support it because jokingly he said that he'd like to erect a statue to us after he took the course, and his life's changed now that he's selling a lot of books, and he's very thankful for that. Now, obviously, I think, what was it? He said who did he quote? Someone doesn't like statues because birds crap on them, basically. So he didn't want to do a statue, but instead he'd like to contribute to the foundation, and so he's going to be sponsoring one foundation winner. So he's actually stumping up several thousand euros. So kudos to Mark. And I think Lucy said to me this morning that we're actually going to pick someone else from this year's crop. So he's going to start this year and then go forward. And I think we're talking about 5 years worth of sponsorship. So, I'm very impressed with that. So we're going to pick another one, and we'll announce that in the community and probably on the podcast when we've decided. It'd be lovely if it was a non-fiction author, but I don't. When we choose those people, I don't really make any kind of distinction as to what is being written. Sure. It's not, it could be any genre at all. So I just really the quality of the writing and the opportunities I see it, and Ricardo from Reedsy and Mark as well. I think Mark can have some feedback onto who this one goes to. So yeah, we'll have more on that soon.
So just to make it clear, the extra person will be drawn from those applicants from 2019.
Yes.
So there's no point in applying. Well, you can absolutely apply in 2020, but that will be decided in the normal course of events in January.
Correct.
Good. Well, thank you. Mark Racklow is a lovely guy, and he does feel in debt to you for your mastery. And I had a very nice time with Mark. He lives on a boat in Barcelona, so didn't hesitate to go out and visit him there. But he's going to come over and see us in London in a couple of weeks, which will be great. Good. Well, the interview, that brings us on very nicely to the interview. It's with a writer called Elle Thorpe. Elle's a very trendy name because of Stranger Things now. Of course, perfect timing for her. And actually, talking of timing, this interview was recorded at the very heart of the very peak of the wildfires in Sydney, around Sydney in New South Wales and Australia, which was terrifying. It did unbelievable amount of damage. Elle was right in the middle of it at that point, potentially had to evacuate if things turned the wrong way, had to check her phone every day. And we do talk about that at the beginning of the interview. It's very interesting. But aside from fighting wildfires, Elle has been one of the foundation recipients, and she's taken that, I think, $2,500 of investment, more than that with the courses, got herself going and did exactly what the foundation is there for. She got her grounding and is now a author, making money, living off her writing, which is absolutely fantastic. So let's hear from Elle Thorpe.
This is the Self-Publishing Show. There's never been a better time to be a writer.
Elle, welcome to the Self-Publishing Show.
Thank you for having me.
It's dark and rainy here, but it's early-ish morning for you.
Yeah, it's definitely not dark and raining here. It never rains in Sydney, so it's sunny. It's 8 o'clock.
We should start by saying that you're in the middle of a horrific episode of wildfires, which is capturing the world's attention at the moment. Just tell us a little bit about that, because you're in the Sydney area, right?
Yeah, I'm about an hour out of Sydney at my place, and there's a rather large fire burning in the Blue Mountains at the moment that has had us covered in smoke for maybe 6 weeks now, maybe a little bit longer. Yeah, so most days are just constant smoke and not letting kids outside to play because they're asthmatic. And we were supposed to go camping at the beginning of this year, but the campgrounds that we were supposed to go to down on the south coast were completely wiped out by a bushfire. Our friends lost their house. Yeah, it's been really bad. So we're just praying for rain.
Yeah, how awful. Well, our sympathies go to you, and obviously we'll join you in the rain dance to try and bring that on. It needs a change in the weather, doesn't it? And just trying to imagine not letting the children out to play, and not going for a run, which I know might be a blessing for some people, but it curtails a huge.
Yeah, not me.
Yeah, well, there you go. It curtails a huge amount of life, doesn't it? And unfortunately,
it's just hard, especially with the kids on school holidays at the moment. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, look, we wish you well with that. Hopefully, by the time this goes out, there's been better news from there. So. Right. Well, let's talk about happier things, which has been your ascent from somebody trying to get going in the whole writer world, the indie world, and with a little bit of help from us, we've helped along the way, which is a great part of this story, to where you are today. So why don't we start sort of at the beginning with your writing career? When did this become something that became perhaps went from a hobby or an interest to an ambition?
Yeah, so I started writing in my youngest daughter's. I have 3 kids, and I started writing in her nap times probably 4 years ago. And then, it was just a hobby. And then I eventually wrote a few books that were terrible. And then finally hit one that I thought was good. And so I never really decided to do the trad pub thing. I was never really interested. So just went straight down the self-pub line. Published that in September 2018. And I actually had it finished quite a while before that, but I held off publishing it. I was listening to the podcast. I was reading everything. I was on keyboards all the time. And I knew that I should probably have a couple in the pipeline before I published. So I held off, and I had 3 ready to go when I published in 2018. So then I had the first 4 books in that series out by the April of 2019. Yeah, and it just sort of didn't really do anything very exciting, to be honest. Like it did. I mean, for a brand new newbie like who didn't know anything that they were doing, it wasn't too bad. I had some pre-orders the first time. I made a few dollars, a couple of hundred here, a couple of hundred there, which I was stoked with. I mean, I wasn't close to making my money back or anything like that, but I was stoked because I was thinking my mum would read it and that would be about it. So yeah, so that's sort of where that all started.
Just to pick up on your decision to go indie right from the beginning, that's because
Yeah.
Where did you start hearing about self-publishing, and at what point did you work out that it would be a better route for you?
To be honest, it was like I was aware of probably self-publishing as soon as it pretty much came to light. I wasn't in a place to do it because I think I was reading about self-publishing even before I was really writing with intent. I was sort of maybe writing 500 words here and 500 words there, but just the whole self-publishing thing really appealed to me. I even now I still love doing all the marketing. I love doing all the extra. I love being the one-woman business. So it just sort of really appealed to me. And I don't know whether it was maybe a little bit of self-doubt. I was sort of thinking, I'd never be able to traditionally publish a book, but I can definitely, like, I'm decent with computers. I can write this book, but, I just never, so the TradPub thing never really appealed to me. And also I write things that my first, the hero of my first book, he's HIV positive. And I just sort of thought, it's going to be a tough slog to get this traditionally published. It's not mainstream. And I had a few friends that were going down, my critique partners were going down the traditionally published side, and I was watching them with their query letters. And at one point they convinced me, they were like, come on, just try. And I did try for an open call, and then I just self-published before I even heard back from them, because it just wasn't for me. And everybody on keyboards was so excited back in the days. So it was exciting, and that's just where I wanted to be.
I'll tell you, that's interesting from my perspective doing these interviews, because it's gone in a fairly short order of time to almost everybody you speak to was either traditionally published or trying to get traditionally published, and kind of eventually discovered one way or another self-publishing, to people who are right from the beginning, know their onions on this subject and make that decision to go indie.
Yeah, I just knew where I wanted to be. So and that's still where I want to be. So
yeah. So you lined up a few books, which is good strategy, still is good strategy, and at some point I think you applied for the foundation that we offer at SPF.
Yeah, so I think I had the first 3 books out. I had those out by January last year, and the 4th was set to come out in April. And I think somewhere between the 2 of those, I heard about the foundation and the scholarship on the podcast, and immediately dismissed it, said, no, there's not a chance that I would ever win that. So I let it go. And then one of my critique partners, Zoe Ashwood, she was applying for it, and she said to me, why aren't you applying? And she's like, why aren't you applying? You've got these 3 books out. You're not really getting anywhere with them. Just apply. And I was like, oh. She's like, I am. You do it too. I said, okay. So we did it together. And then it just kind of snowballed from there. I kept getting emails back that said, yeah, you're through to the next round. And then I got another one that said, yeah, you're through to the next round. And the whole time I'm thinking, I'm going to get kicked out at some point. Somebody's going to realize that my books aren't that great and I don't deserve to be here. And yeah, it didn't happen. So
the old imposter syndrome.
Oh, I have so much imposter syndrome. It's terrible. So, and especially even more so back then. And then I nearly died when I got the email that said, Mark is going to be reading some of your work, and that's the next level. And I thought, oh my goodness, I'm definitely gone now. But yeah, and then I finally got the email that said, yep, you're a winner. And yeah, it was just amazing. It was really good for my self-confidence too. It just, it meant a lot to me to just get that sort of nod that, maybe I'm sort of doing things in the right way and I'm heading in the right direction. And yeah, it was really good.
People have faith in you, which is
is a good. And that's the kind of thing about going indie. You don't really get any feedback. I mean, I have my critique partners. I get a lot of feedback from them. I had a few books out. I had great reviews. I was really happy with the reviews. But it's just nice to have that industry nod as well. So yeah, I was very, very. There was a lot of excited screaming that day.
Yeah. Well, brilliant. So you got, you say it's a chunk of money. I think it's services up to about
Mhm.
3,000 US dollars. From
I think it was 2,500, yeah,
I should
in
know the
US,
answer to
yeah.
this. It might be 3,000
Yeah.
now, but at the time it was
It could
25.
be, yeah.
Okay. And so you then had, some. I imagine from where you were, you had suddenly had some decent money to spend on your marketing efforts. How did you apply
Yeah.
yourself at that point?
Well, it was just, yeah, it was all very overwhelming in the beginning. But then so it was the $2,500 from Reedsy, plus access to all the marketing courses and the beginners course, the 101 course. And so then it was just kind of a matter of working through all the material on the courses and getting my books. I used the 2,500, well, I'm still using it actually. I use that for editing through Reedsy. So I've had a whole year full of free editing, which has been amazing. So it's a nice,
Did you get
yeah,
your
little way
existing
to.
books, your published books, edited, or
No, so I already
new
had
books?
those edited. I
Okay.
had pocketed, like I had paid for those, but in the last, well, since 2019, I've written another 3 or 4 full length books, and so I've had some of those edited with that Reedsy money. So yeah, that's been nice.
And you did the
It's been very
courses.
nice. Yeah, so I probably the marketing course was more the ads for authors was more where I was interested. As I said, I'd done a few years full of research, finding all the information that's in the 101 course. I'd done the hard way of
Yeah.
reading it on keyboards, and I wish I'd had that a few years earlier. But then, yeah, the marketing course is what I needed, 100%. I was trying to do Facebook ads. I had the 4 books out. I hadn't bothered advertising because everybody had said, don't worry until you've got a few books and you've got something to sell through to. So I'd sort of left it alone, but I just started trying to do Facebook ads and I was just failing miserably. I just needed somebody to say, which buttons to tick and which I just didn't. I was throwing money at the wall basically and getting nowhere. So then the ads for authors course is just really where I focused all my attention.
So the big question now is what difference it's made.
A big difference. It's definitely
Phew.
gone from a hobby to my business and to my job. My goal at the beginning of 2019, my youngest daughter started school, and I've been a stay-at-home mum for 10 years, and so I've never gone back to work, looking after the 3 kids. And my goal was that I free my husband from his second job. He's been working 2 jobs for 10 years. And working 7 days most weeks because childcare here is just insane. So, and my goal was to get him out of that second job, and that's where we're at now. So I did all the Facebook. The Facebook was where I wanted to start because I already had a little bit of background knowledge in that. I mean, as I said, I wasn't doing well with it, but I had a vague idea. And then, so I started going through those modules and worked out that I was basically doing everything wrong, and fixed them all up. And it wasn't very long. It was only less than 2 weeks before I finished the course and then hit an ad that started doing really well.
Wow.
It just sort of came out of the blue, and it wasn't even, I had been trying to run ads on the first book in my series, which is what everybody says to do. But I sort of worked out pretty quickly that the 3rd book in my series is my strongest book. And so I thought I'm just going to try an ad for this one. And that's the one that really took off. My series they're a series of standalone romances. So each one can be read individually, but obviously for read through, you want to still start at the beginning. But, at this point, I was just sort of like, if I can get an ad to run, great. And so, yeah, it just started taking off. I started really, really small. I started at $5 a day. And it came in, I think that very first ad came in at about 6 cents a click. And I just thought, okay, well, this is different because until that point, I'd been getting 30, 40 cents a click, just rubbish ads, which, probably is okay for some people, but it just wasn't going to work, especially if I was basically marketing this book as a standalone. So then that came in, and then I left it for a few days, and then I added another $5 when I could see my rank going up because I'm in Kindle Unlimited. It's a bit hard always. I'm not always getting a lot of sales, but my page reads are going up. So I started just watching my rank, making sure my rank was dropping and my reads were continually going up, and I just kept adding money to it. And I wasn't even spending a lot, but at one point there, I was making about 6 times what I was spending on my ads. So yeah, it was
600% is a good return.
It was a really good return. So, I mean, those ads were brand new. That book had never been advertised before. And so it was kind of like my second launch, I suppose, for that book. And that's why. I wish it was still selling at 6 times, but it's still selling pretty good even a year later. So, yeah, I'm really, really pleased.
You know, when I listen to you talking, it reminds me that there are people who start with Facebook ads, don't get them working, give up, and never go back to them, and will tell anyone who listens that they don't work.
No, you've just got to keep trying. I mean, maybe they don't work for some people, but I was in the same boat. I spent at least 2 months before I started the course just putting an ad up every week and just looking at it and going, okay. I was doing all sorts of things, adding it to all locations and having just not having good images, not having good, I was sort of using ad copy instead of using it. I found excerpts from my book very, work better in romance. I just wasn't getting anywhere, but I kept going and I was determined to make it work. But at some point I did kind of know I need somebody to teach me how to do this. But yeah, absolutely. You just have to stick with it and keep trying. And even now, a year later, I feel like I have a better grasp now, and I can generally sort of tell if an ad is going to work. Well, I have a vague idea, and I hope, I suppose, that this ad will work. And most of the time I'm right, and sometimes I'm still wrong. And You just try again. You just got to be willing to lose that money in the beginning, because once you actually do get an ad that works, I've just been blown away by, as I said, it turned a hobby into a business. So yeah, very, very good.
You have an income that's enough to half retire your husband, who bless him, has been doing two jobs.
He is an amazing man, and he's my number one supporter, even though he's never read any of my books. But he works incredibly hard. And it's for a long time, there was nothing I could do about it, because we needed me to be home and we needed him to work. It's not cheap to live in Sydney. So, no. He's been working so hard, and it's just, he's still employed by that second job, but he hasn't taken a shift in 6 months now.
Wow.
So that's my income replaced his second job. So next goal is to just free him entirely of his day job, and he can be the stay-at-home mum for a while.
Yeah, the retiring your husband trend, which is sort of...
I'd love to do it for him. He deserves it. So, yeah.
And by the way, you're right about Australia. When I was in Sydney, just looking at the papers about house rentals, and you'd see figures like 2,700. You think, well, that's not too bad a month. And it's a week. And you think, how can people live like this? It's so expensive. I don't understand the economy in Australia. Tim Tams are cheap, but everything else is really expensive.
We don't understand it either. We just scrape by. So no, we're lucky. We got into the housing market when we were young, so it was a bit cheaper back then. But it's still not easy to do it on one income. So.
Thank you. My microphone just did something weird there that people will notice at home, but I didn't want to miss you laughing about Tim Tams, so we keep that. Okay. Well, look. I've got another point about your writing, which I think is a really good takeaway. My cogs are whirring now. Is the thing about being standalone in a series, because I do think there's a great advantage to having your books, even if they're a series, having the ability to read them as standalone novels. Because if you write a series and you put so much effort into writing a series of 6, 7, 8 books, and if there is systemic problems with one or two of them, even if it's just one of them, if it's in the middle of it, you're sort of scuppered if you have to read them in order. If reading them out of order doesn't make any sense, if that's the way you've written. And of course, artistically, creatively, that's how some people want to write and some people want to read. But if you get that with read through being so important, you get that drop off, there's almost nothing you can do about it unless you just bite the bullet, take that book out, completely rewrite it. And whoever wants to go back and do that whole thing again.
No, not me.
No. But having the ability to think, okay, so rather than running ads and everyone's attention on that first one, this, in your situation, this book 3 is doing well. And then people will go and read book 1 and book 2. They do. Yeah. It's a small commercial point, but I think it's a very important one.
Yeah, they absolutely do. Every time I start running an ad for that third book, I notice that my rank on book 1 will also drop as well, generally. And I I'm a big fan of Maria Lewis, and I know she does that with her books. And so yeah, I definitely took a bit of inspiration from her there. But I mean, and it's completely right, especially in romance. If you do write a standalone series, it's great to have that read through, but it is also good to have multiple places where people can jump in and. Obviously you want them to start at the beginning and read all the way through, but hey, if they go back as well, that's fine too.
Yeah, good point. So let's talk about the writing a little bit. So you started on nap breaks, which I can remember in the early days of nap breaks, because I was at home a little bit as well, sleeping as well during that time when you're not awake at night. Oh, sorry, you are awake at night, so you get a nap. But obviously you got to the point where you didn't necessarily have to recharge your own batteries. So what drove you to start writing then, and what did you write?
So in the beginning, I wrote a paranormal romance or two, which was...
Is that what you were reading?
I don't know. I suppose it was sort of born from the Twilight era, because it was in that, I think it was probably in 2011-ish or maybe 2012 that I started doing that. So I was a bit late on the Twilight train. But I was sort of reading those then, and I think that's where that came from. But it was terrible. That first book that I wrote, it was 70,000 words. It wasn't plotted out. I didn't outline it all then. It was just me sitting down every nap time and writing 1,000 words, or until my toddler spilt something, or until my baby woke up, or until I had to go and pick the eldest one up from preschool or something. So, but I was trying to write 1,000 words a day. And then if the baby was still asleep, I'd jump on keyboard. So I was like, right, even back then that was kind of my routine. I might have only had 2 hours a day, but I'd write for an hour, and then I'd jump on keyboards and I'd be researching for an hour or so until the baby woke up. So I wrote that paranormal. That was terrible. As I said, I got to 75,000 words, and it had I didn't even know where I was at with it. There was no conclusion in sight. So I scrapped it. And then I wrote another book and did exactly the same thing, made all the same mistakes. That was terrible. Also scrapped that. And then finally I think by that time, so we're probably in 2014 or maybe 2015 by this point. And by that time, I was reading a lot more contemporary romance by then, and decided I just wanted to write a book that had really strong conflict. I'd read a lot of books where it was just, you want that strong conflict between a hero and a heroine, and I just read a lot of books where it was just they didn't tell each other something, and it was just silly. So I started thinking, well, what can I write that has, this conflict? And that was the conflict. There was the hero has HIV, and he's HIV positive, or he's diagnosed with it throughout the course of the book anyway. So that's where that book came from, and that went on to be my debut. That one.
Wow.
So, yeah.
And you were plotting at this point now?
I plotted that one.
Yeah.
And that's I put that down. That's the only reason that book got finished. I wrote that for Nano in, I think, 2016. And I didn't win. I only got the first 40,000 words. And then I was so exhausted. Back then I thought that writing, 1,600 words a day was terrible, and well, not terrible, but it was painful. It was a real struggle to get that every day. And then I was so tired by the end of it that I took 3 months off and didn't finish it until early the year after. And then it just went through, a series of edits with editors and critique partners. And I've always had my critique partners by my side the whole time. Otherwise, I don't think I'd still be here. But so that's kind of where we went from there.
And just a quick one on the mechanics of your writing, as I'm always interested in how people write. Do you write in Scrivener and Word, or?
Well, it's been a bit of back and forth. I do have Scrivener, and I like it for first drafts. I do. I liked it more especially my earlier books. I wrote in Scrivener all the time because I still was learning the mechanics, basically the basics. I still am learning, but the basics of writing. And so I was getting scenes all out of order, and I really needed Scrivener to help me put them back in and move them around. And so I would sort of take them from Scrivener and edit them as I went into Word at that point, because my editor needed it in Word.
Yeah.
So I would kind of just take the good bits out of Scrivener and then rewrite all the rest of it. But as I've sort of gone on, I still love Scrivener. I do a lot of outlining in Scrivener because I like the corkboard and I can see it all. there. But I do tend to write now in Word now that I've got my outlining system down a bit better and I understand the beats of romance a bit better. I find now that I can actually just write it in Word and I don't need to move things around as much. But again, that comes down to outlining, mostly good outlining.
And what's your word count today? Not necessarily today, but I mean, it's 8 o'clock in the morning.
It's only 8 o'clock, James.
As in the general, these days, I should say.
So normally I shoot for just a minimum of 2,000 words a day.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I just do that Monday to Friday normally. Often I'm getting more than that, but if I start telling myself, I tried saying to myself last year that I had to write 3,000 words a day, and my mind just immediately went, no, we're not doing that. So now often I do write more than 2,000, but 2,000 is my minimum. If I get to 2,000 and I want to stop, I can.
Do you do that in one session?
Yeah, mostly I drop the kids at school. I do half an hour of exercise and then I just sit at the computer for the next hour and a half, 2 hours, and I make sure I get that 2,000 words. If I'm writing more than 2,000, I've had some days where I've written 10,000, 5,000. Those I definitely don't do all in one hit. If I want to, if I know I want a really big word count, if I'm at a really exciting part in the book, or if I don't work to close deadlines all that often, but if I do decide I want a big day, I'll get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and do 2 hours and then do another. I do them in blocks of 2 hours normally. 2 hours is about my focus limit.
But even 2 hours is I find that quite hard. 2 hours, that would be a struggle for me. An hour is about 45 minutes is when I start getting antsy, and an hour is about the limit for sitting there writing. It's quite intensive experience writing.
Yeah, absolutely. It depends on my mood. Some days I don't find my flow until I'm sitting there for an hour. So sometimes I'm just sitting there plucking a few words here and there for an hour until I realize that I'll find a flow. But I do find as well, the more words I write in one day, the more I get into that flow state. Mm-hmm. So sometimes it is worthwhile for me to just sit there and just force out, even if I'm forcing out half an hour of rubbishy words that I know that I can fix later. Sometimes it's worth it for me to do that to get into that flow state where the words start coming quickly and they're normally good. They're the good words as well when they're coming quickly. And yeah, so again, that comes back to a good outline too. So I'm all about the outline.
Yeah, you've become a complete convert to the outline.
Absolutely.
Yes, I think I'm sort of the same. I'm obviously nowhere near your status in terms of writing, but having gone through that period of writing nano type things that never go anywhere, you then almost hate opening it because it's such a mess and you don't know where it begins, ends, and has no middle.
And it's very confusing when it's like that and you've got bits and pieces.
Especially in a Word document where it takes half an hour to load in the first place. But yeah, suddenly when you're outlining, and I plot quite detailed now, quite look forward to it because you've got the freedom.
Yeah,
so
it's the fun part.
Yeah, you're writing the scene that you've already done the hard work in terms of working out.
Absolutely. Outlining is by far my favorite part of writing. It's the part where you get to be all creative and you can write all the crazy ideas but you're not wasting your time writing 10,000 words and then scrapping them. So you can just write a few bullet points and go, yes, this is going to be amazing when I get to it. So yeah I love outlining.
So, ambitions for 2020? We should say it's January we're recording this, so everyone thinks about the year ahead.
Yeah.
You're going to get your husband out that second job.
I don't know if that'll happen this year, but I hope that we're heading in that direction for sure. I've got a new series that's actually the first one releases this Thursday, so it should be well and truly out by the time this airs. And so I spent a lot of time last year, again, stockpiling books. So I've actually got 3, but one's in another series ready to go for this year. And I'm hoping to write another 4, maybe 5, depending. I'm hoping to up my word count a little bit this year. So I think we'll just say 2,500 a day rather than that 3,000 that seems to freak me out.
You have
so I'm doing that. And then, sorry.
I was going to say, do you have weekends off?
I do try to take weekends off, or because it's very hard, and I try to take my kids' school holidays off as well. It's just very hard to write with them home, and they walk in every 5 minutes. This is, like, as you can see, this is my office is in my bedroom.
Right.
It's just in the corner. I don't have a dedicated office. So, I try not to write when they're home. I'm often doing other things, though. I will save my marketing and stuff like that for the weekends. if we're not doing family things, because I can do that when they're interrupting it. Like, as I said, when I get into that word flow state, I don't want to be interrupted. But marketing, I do a lot of graphic design work. I can do all of that sort of thing when they're home. And so that gets saved for the weekend.
Yeah. And in terms of genre, you seem pretty happy and comfortable with the area you're writing in now. Any plans to expand out of that niche?
Well, I will always write some sort of romance. I love romance. It's where my heart is. If I'm writing something with no romance in it, I've been kidnapped or something, and that's my SOS.
Everything's got a bit of romance in it, though, hasn't it? Star Wars has got romance in it.
Absolutely. There should be a romance in everything. But yeah, I've got Contemporary Cowboys coming out in January, and I do have a sci-fi romance written. I've written the first book. That's in editing at the moment, which I will likely release under a pen name probably in April, I want to say, around then maybe. But I may hold on to it until I've got the next two written as well. So, but at the moment, I'm full of cowboys at the moment.
Full of cowboys at the moment.
Yeah, that sounds wrong.
Yeah, just park that from it's a different niche altogether. Great. Well, it's brilliant to hear that you've gone on to great things, Elle. I know there are other foundation members who've also had that spark. It's been exactly what it was designed for. We look for people who have the potential, and you do the rest. But you're the first one I've actually spoken to, because we're remiss and disorganized of us to go back and get the interviews done. But we will do that over time. But you are the first person, and it's delightful for us to see you smiling at your success, which is as it should be.
Oh, good. I'm so glad. I've been just really stoked and over the moon with how everything is going, and I just hope it keeps. Well, it will. I'm not going to say it hope, because it will. It'll just keep bigger and better things from here on, even. So yeah.
And I keep saying this about going to Australia. It's not going to happen in 2020, but maybe we should put a marker down for 2021. We'll try and get over to New Zealand and Australia, because we've got so many people there, and it's
that would be amazing. Definitely,
it is a great part of the world. Although obviously at the moment you're being terrorized by these wildfires, and also in the middle of the interview, I don't know if you noticed, but I just noticed there was a spider hanging over my head, and I brushed it away. Now, where you live, if I was in your house and I saw a spider over my head, I would leave the house. Because they can kill you.
Take your shoe off and you throw it. I keep telling everybody this. Just take your shoe off and you kill it.
You're made of sterner stuff over there. But
you have to be. There's spiders everywhere.
The idea of gardening in New South Wales with those funnel webs ready to leap out at you, I'm out of that.
Yeah, I'm not much of a gardener, not just for that reason, but it's one of them.
If it's not one thing, it's another. It's going to get you in Australia, but a lovely country.
Yeah, there's plenty of things outside. It's better to just stay inside and write.
Yeah, indeed. Well, look, we send you all the best for your situation at the moment in Australia. We're thrilled with your success, Elle, and I want to say thank you so much indeed for spending some time talking to us.
Oh, thank you for having me, and thank you to everyone that chose me to be the founder. It really did make a difference, so I'm really appreciative.
This is the Self-Publishing Show. There's never been a better time to be a writer.
There you go. So we wish everyone well in Australia for those events. Hopefully that's. Well, I think we haven't heard much for a while now, so hopefully that's.
They've had some rain. I think a lot of it has stopped now, but yes, it's pretty scary stuff.
That was terrifying for them, and well done, Elle. Really exciting to hear somebody get on like that and have that success.
Absolutely, no, it's great to see people having their talent recognised, and that can be recognised by way of good reviews, people joining their mailing list, or a way I quite like, people buying books and getting KU reads, and actually making a bit of money. So it's lovely to see her doing so well.
You can't get drunk on compliments.
It's difficult. Yeah, absolutely.
Good. Okay, excellent. Mark, thank you very much indeed. I think that's probably it. You and I are getting into high anxiety mode by the time this goes out. Well, you're just going to turn up, and go.
I'm pretty chill, but yeah.
I mean, who knows what's going to happen with the worldwide pandemic by the time this goes out? Things may have changed, but
yeah, who knows? Yeah, exactly. But no, we as it stands right now, we're looking forward to it. So it'll be
no hugging.
No hugging. Definitely no kissing.
Okay. I'm going to let you say the goodbye.
All right. See ya. Oh no, sorry, you want to do it properly, right? Okay, so yes, it's goodbye from me and
a goodbye from him.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Get show notes, the podcast archive, and free resources to boost your writing career at selfpublishingshow.com. Join our thriving Facebook group at selfpublishingshow.com/Facebook. Support the show at patreon.com/selfpublishingshow. And join us next week for more help and inspiration so that you can make your mark as a successful indie author. Publishing is changing, so get your words into the world and join the revolution with the Self-Publishing Show.